All statements and opinions expressed by guests of the Adult in the Room podcast are strictly their own and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or opinions of the host, producers, or advertisers. All interviews are presented in their most complete possible form in the interests of free speech. No statements should be interpreted as financial, legal, or medical advice. Listener and viewer discretion are strongly advised.
It's the Adult in the Room podcast with Victoria Taft. That's me.
Well, I did want to talk about California because California it's code red time in California. There's so much wrong with what's going on in that state, one of my states. I write the West Coast report for the PJ Media every week. And I give you little samplings of what's going on in Washington, Oregon, and in California. And California is, it's on fire. It's on fire. They can't afford certain things because they've given all this money away to illegal aliens, which is true. They've not been able to pay some of their bills, and they've gone begging to Washington, D.C. after they've been told, look, we're not going to give you the Obamacare subsidies. And now they're talking about a billionaire tax? Oh, sure, that's great. You know what billionaires have? Money. They'll get out. So let's talk about that with Mike Netter. Rebuild California is his favorite thing. He wants to make sure that California can finally be rebuilt into a place where we can be proud of it again. God, I love California, but I don't like their leadership. Mike Netter, thanks so much for coming on the Adult in the Room podcast. How are you?
Victoria, I'm doing fantastic today. How are you doing?
It's good to have your energy.
With an adult in the room because, frankly, in Sacramento and California, I'm not even sure they allow toddlers to supervise from what's going on out here, actually, where I'm at. It's fascinating to hear you talk about a billionaire tax, which is a bunch of hyperbole. I'm going to jump right in, but I'm going to get off a quick commercial. Is that okay?
Sure.
Even if it's not Victoria, you invited me in, so I tend to take things over. So everyone out there who's watching this, I'm sharing this show on my feed last night. Make sure to follow me at NetterMike on X, or Twitter as it's still known to us veterans. Follow me on Facebook at my real name, Mike Netter. Also, go to our Rebuild California groups where we have about 70 of them, one per county, as we help gather petitions for direct democracy in California. And here's a shocker, and I know you're not a Democrat if I'm going to say this. If you have a job and are on LinkedIn, feel free to go there and follow me too, because the reality is together, social media like the show I'm on right now, we are the media now, and we have the ability to upsert the mainstream, get the truth out there, which are some of the things I'm going to talk about today. Victoria, I'm ready to dive right in, so tell me when you'd like me to jump into the deep end of the pool.
Well, let's talk about what Gavin Newsom said at the, what is that? Why do I keep forgetting what the heck it's called? The book, what is it? The book, whatever, the New York Times. Well, I tell you what, I will answer that question because I'm going to play Gavin Newsom being questioned about the billionaire tax, the alleged one-time billionaire tax. Let's find out what he says.
A wealth tax proposal in California that I think you are adamantly against.
Yes, I am.
And we have a mayor that's coming here in New York who would like to have a wealth tax if he could. You couldn't be more diametrically opposed.
Yeah, well, I want to be a Big Ten party. It's about addition, not subtraction.
But this idea of a unifying theory of the case.
I mean, I think we all want to be protected. We all want to be respected.
Theory.
We all want to be connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay. I just want you to know that what Andrew Ross Sorkin asked him to do was to call out and specify what the unifying theory of his Big Tent party and why it is helped in any way or form with the idea of a wealth tax. The wealth tax is 5% tax. And it doesn't necessarily tax the real estate because that's already taxed. It taxes IP. It taxes bank accounts, stock options, all of those things in one snapshot in time. And they expect the 200 billionaires that they're going to fleece with this retroactive tax to pay up so that they can pay for the health care for illegal aliens. Do I about have that right, Mike?
Well, you do, accept a couple key points which get missed in this.
Okay.
When you open the barn door to everything, let's gather around the concept of what a wealth tax is and what you consider wealthy. Now, as many of you watching this show are going, I'm going to guess he's not 30, and that would be absolutely correct. Being a little bit older, I remember when a million used to be a lot of money, and we've lost
Sure.
track today of what a billion is.
Yep.
A wealth tax or asset tax. And let me start by explaining the danger of this. I've
Mhm.
talked about this a few times. What a great recharge. I'm glad you're asking this question. Means you're taxed on your assets. So let's be clear on a couple things. It can be real estate, or maybe not. It's collectibles. It's the car you have in your driveway.
Mhm.
And many people out there go, I like to stick it to those 200 billionaires that are going to miss the money. But the problem to begin with, one, it's not really legal because it taxes you on assets you haven't cashed in
Oh,
yet.
that's right. That's
Hold
exactly
on, let
right.
me explain something. Sorry, Victoria, I'm on a
You're
roll
going to
here.
mansplain it. That's so fine.
I'm
It's
gonna
I'm kidding
mansplain it
around with
because
you.
it's a danger to everybody out there. Because
Yeah.
many Californians, we sit here and we have equity in our homes, okay?
Sure.
And many of you out there watching this, well, you bought a home, or your mom and pa bought a home, or your mom and pa's mom and pa, commonly known as your grandparents, bought a home a ways back, and that home now maybe you finally have hit the point where you owe 30 grand and it's worth $1 million. Once you start allowing the government to tax on assets, then becomes the point. You ready for a shocker? Are you look like you're sitting down?
I
Okay.
am sitting
The
down. I
government,
don't usually, but
especially in
now.
California, never has enough money. So
I
no
know.
matter how much money we give them, they're always going to want more. So
Sure.
then they start lowering the definition of
Of
what
course.
wealth is.
Yep.
So then they're going to turn around and say, hey, all you people have worked hard all your lives, not you illegal aliens, of course, because you haven't worked hard. We're going to give you everything for free, which, by the way, is my retirement plan, to go over to Mexico and come back without necessarily my passport so I can get everything for free. Being a
Yeah.
refugee from California, that's my ultimate retirement. But let's go back to what I'm talking about here. So as they're going to lower the bar on this, they're going to say, hey, you people whose homes are worth $1 million, your car in your driveway, which is now worth 50, thanks to Gavin inflation, shall we call it, which is worth more. We're going to start taxing you on that, even though you're not selling them. And before everybody goes out there goes, well, he's being a little draconian and weird, let me give you an example of something that LA actually passed last year called the mansion tax. Are you
Oh,
familiar with
yes. Oh, yes, I am.
now?
I
For
like to
folks
watch those real estate shows, and they're always complaining about it.
indeed, they do. And for the mansion tax means that if you go and sell a property over $5 million, which pretty much is many properties in Los Angeles, including Ma and Pa Kettle, as we use that acronym, if you will, who own a small strip mall or apartment building, they may be even taking a loss on that, but they are subject to a tax on the gross proceeds. So this is
Yeah.
setting the precedent for government that they are going to start taxing on wealth, even though it's unrealized,
Unrealized
not book
assets. Yeah.
value, as we say in
Hmm.
accounting. And that's the problem. And this is why Gavin Newsom, when he sits there and goes, whether you like it or not, and full disclosure, I'm one of the guys that started the recall of him that made the ballot. So he's not exactly a fan of mine. Funny, I've never been invited to his podcast. Story for another day. The reality is, Gavin Newsom doesn't want to tick off the 200 billionaires in California because they support his corruption, especially liberal ones, as you saw with Halle Berry this week,
Yep.
making fun of Gavin and Gavin trying to kiss and make up, like it's a scene from a James Bond movie. But the reality is, Gavin Newsom doesn't care about gouging the normal citizens of California, and the billionaire tax being proposed by the idiots. well, they're all idiots, even though some of the Republicans, but let's assume they're the same ones, no adults in the room, in the state assembly and state senate and by the unions, forget the fact we're being bleeded dry every day
Oh,
by
absolutely.
gasoline prices and the
Oh,
tax.
yeah. In fact, I think I have a picture of somebody. I'll look it up while we're listening to this little next part of Gavin Newsom's comments over at the Deal Book Summit by the New York
Values
Times.
that I think define our party about social justice, economic justice. I think we recognize it's important to focus on growth, but also focus on inclusion. We have pre-distribution Democrats, we have redistribution Democrats, and therein lies the dialectic and therein lies the debate within the Democratic Party. We also have Democrats that are representative of their districts.
Okay, so here he was supposed to say that
I want to be a
where is
Big
it?
Ten party. It's about addition, not subtraction.
Subtraction, yeah, blah blah
The
blah.
case.
I mean, I think
Oh, here we go.
But this idea of a unifying theory of the case.
I mean, I think we all want to be protected. We all want to be respected. We all want to be connected to something bigger than ourselves. We have fundamental values that I think define our.
Okay, somewhere in that answer, which is just, it's just gobbledygook. I mean, he's got his Jesse Jackson talking points and his verses and that sort of thing. But he says, "Oh, I'm not in support of it." And later he says in this Deal Book Summit interview with the New York Times, he says, "Oh, well, it's only one union and it's one part of one union that's behind it. And there's only one person in that one union that's behind it. And so and they haven't even collected signatures on it yet." Now,
Well, they won't necessarily correct. But let's take a step back on direct democracy.
Well, let me ask you something. Let me ask you this. Here's what I want to know. On this issue, are they holding it like a sword of Damocles over these billionaires' heads? Like, for example, or of course, the Republicans' heads. We are not going to pull the trigger on this if you give us the money for the illegal aliens. Okay, what do you think?
No, here's what's happening. The unions, and this is right now we have, so I'm going to take a quick
It's
second.
SEIU union. It's SEIU,
Right.
like the
Let
most
me take
radical
a step
union
back.
in the doggone state.
I've only got a few minutes here, so let me try to explain this.
Sorry.
Direct democracy has two versions in California. It's got a version that I specialize in, for example, with the initiatives where it takes 8% of the people that voted for governor last time to do a California constitutional amendment, 5% of the people that voted for governor last time to do an initiative, and then the state legislature themselves can put one on the ballot where they don't need to collect signatures. Putting that aside, the unions themselves, there's really no good way to compare them except possibly to the mafia, the SEI union and the rest of them out there strong arming Gavin. And the problem with public unions, especially with the SEIU gets involved, like with the teachers union, is again, they always want more. Now, what Gavin Newsom is really saying is he doesn't want to threaten the billionaires because the billionaires donate a lot, Code Red California, to their causes that are out there, and the billionaires will flee the state. What the unions who are run, well, I say idiots, but I really don't want to insult any people who are actual idiots out there. So we need a whole new class of low intelligence. I'll leave it at that, right? That think they're going to tax a small group of people to raise money. Again, this isn't necessarily for any specific cause. It's to add to the pool of corruption. Here's a trivia fact for you that you might find fascinating. When Gavin Newsom came into the office of California as governor, allegedly, because we don't see him much out here, not that it's a bad thing, the budget of California was about 198 billion with a B dollars. Today, merely 6.5 years later, our budget is about 320 billion with a B. And of course, you have to wonder where the hell the money goes. Because as you could tell, our roads suck, crime is up. And literally, if you ask people, and I got asked this a lot, why are you trying to recall Gavin? What's going wrong? I said, you have to name for me something in California that's going right. We don't rank number one in any category that you want to rank number one in. Now, Gavin tries to cover this up, of course, by making them very good at marketing. Proposition 50, as we know, it's expletive deleted Trump. Our message should have been expletive deleted Gavin, et cetera, et cetera. But what Gavin knows, or the people around him do, the state isn't really majority Democrat. Hold on. This only about 35% or so of the registered voters are actually Democrat, 25% Republicans, hold that thought, and the rest are NPPs and other party. But the reality is, when I talk about percentages and getting things done, do you know what the biggest party is in California, Victoria?
Independence.
Nope. It's the party of apathy. It's the
Oh.
party of people that don't vote. In this upcoming gubernatorial primary we have coming up historically, where there are 22 million registered voters. I'm a math guy and a sales body, a public speaker for those of you out there. There are about 18 million people that have ever voted, allegedly. And of those 18 million, only about 7 million bother to even vote in the primary aggregate for all people running for governor. And as you go downstream in the undervote, Rob Bonta. And Rob and Mia Bonta, for those of you that are not familiar with them, well, lucky for you. But if they go down below when they die, Satan probably won't let them in. Their Office of Assembly office that Mia now got handed to by Rob, the alleged Attorney General of California. We could spend an entire show talking about his corruption, and we may spend part of this one. There are 252,000 votes in that assembly district, historically about 40,000 people in Oakland. How's it going for you, Oakland? Bother to even turn out to vote for that office. So the really biggest party in California is the party of apathy or non-participation. That's what I try to stimulate on social media. And I know you've been following my feed.
Yes.
So we got
Yes.
here from there. And that's where I get about 4 million views a week. And that's what we do in Rebuild California, simply to say, look, what makes you outraged, the name of one of my shows. Because if you want to know why things aren't going so well, take a look around you. Things aren't going so well because you need to vote for something else, because it's not working out very well for you.
And
Gavin Newsom is really good at getting on stage with the New York Times. You were talking about January 6th a couple seconds ago. And as is coming out, as the press covered in January 6th, look, it's the guy with the weird horn sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. One dude out of 100,000 people, 2 to 500 that maybe made a mistake that way, is what lies beneath that we don't pay attention to. That is the underbelly that the press is afraid to cover. That's a lot of really what's happening with Bonta Newsom and the corruption going on right now. The billionaire tax, at the end of the day, is just such a bad precedent for them to, shall we say, put it up our posterior where the sun don't shine, to be polite. To not let us pay attention to the little bleeding, the blood drops or bloodletting, as they said in medieval ages, to take it out of us every day.
I mean, there's a lot of money in California, but I'll tell you something, there will be a lot less of it if the billionaires leave. And they will. And I know David Sachs said he was talking to his friends, all of whom are billionaires, and they might leave. And so I'm sure that, I know Elon said he left, he brought back some of the Tesla R&D. And Gavin Newsom likes to make a big deal about that, because they are taking a spot that was previously occupied by HP, the founders of Silicon Valley. Yes.
I'm waving my hands because I
I
have a
see.
little bit background in economics here.
Mhm.
Let's be clear about something. Why Gavin likes to say, hey, we moved up to the fourth largest economy.
Yes.
California, in terms of the net, you know what a net largest economy is? Okay, it's kind of like the gross proceeds you have left over.
Uh-huh.
In just the United States alone, meaning the state, by the way, has a approximately 50 billion, that's billion with a B, boys and girls, deficit next year, okay?
Yeah.
And by the time you subtract the things out of the economy, we rank about 11th in just the United States alone. It's like profit left over. Like, look, my sales are $1 million. How are your expenses, Harvey? $1.5 million. Well, how'd it work out for you? Well, not so well. And that's the state of California. So we listen to Gavin Newsom because he has the bully pulpit, if you will. He's got the
Sure.
slick back hair, it could talk. But economically, California, on many metrics, frankly, on most metrics, really isn't doing this well. You know about our poverty rate, don't you?
I mean, it's the highest in the country, isn't it?
It's highest in the country percentage-wise and highest in terms of gross number of people that
Mhm.
we have. Our education ranks lower than Alfred E. Newman, Mad Magazine reference for you old folks, IQ out there, because we spend more money per student, with one exception, New York City, on education than anywhere else. It's more than code red. Look, he let many portions of California burn. Whether it's inept or evil, we can
Yeah.
argue about in other segments, but the scoreboard is government's main job is not to support illegal aliens, it's to keep our posterior, there's a shorter word for it, safe, to keep
Right.
us from burning down, be attacked by criminals, to make sure that the potholes in the road aren't larger than Lake Shasta. That's government's main job. And the reality is, when Elon Musk moves away from California, jobs go away. I don't really give a rodent's posterior if Elon Musk and David Sachs live in California. What I care about is the economic cycle, or the spreading out of money around California to keep people employed. And that circulatory effect of money is dropping rapidly in California, meaning, and California, sorry, has a crack problem that we call spending, which is
Mm.
why the budget in California has
Mm.
gone up by approximately 120 billion. That's billion with a B. Most of you are happy to have $10 that to get from Sub today, which is about what a Taco Supreme now cost, a burrito Supreme cost a Taco Bell now. Work on that in California. So the bottom line is, every time the unions do things to up minimum wage, to mess with what we in conservatives like, the free hand of the economy, it creates more towards the socialistic side, which is causing the economy of California to go like this. Gavin Newsom can't even spell economics. No, he gets parrots what other people preach to him about. We're the fourth or fifth. And by the way, we only graduated to fourth because Japan had an expletive deleted year, so they dropped to fifth, right? But that's gross economy, not net economy,
Okay.
which is how you judge it in California.
That's good. That's good to know. Tell me a little bit about how things are going after the fires in the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire, and how's that rebuilding going, Mike Natter?
Well, that's easy to answer. It's not. Okay. It simply isn't going at all. Okay. Now, my personal story here, which I rarely share, but most people know, my house burned down in the San Diego wildfires in 2007.
Oh, I
Don't need a
remember that
law.
one.
Didn't have to
No.
clean the garage that year. Got out. Hey, everybody was happy, healthy, and alive. Right. And the
Right.
problem we have is that this just in, the fire shouldn't have happened at all. You know, one of the two main reasons the fires happened, right?
Mm. This particular one or
This
in general?
particular one.
Well, because they didn't stop the other one, the Lockman fire, and then they decided to not fight the fire because the Topanga Canyon was a natural area, and they thought, and then the rule was that they had to not fight it,
So,
which is
two
right
things. You
next to
summed it up pretty
Palisades.
well. I'm not as smart as you, so let me keep it simple. Okay. Bottom line is, they didn't clear the brush.
Well,
Okay. And you
there
could
was a
go
there was
back
a
and
law
forth.
against that. They couldn't
Okay.
because that was
Right.
their
Yes. But here's something else. You heard that the hydrants ran out of water. And for
Yes.
everybody out there, and this is really the scary part for political advocates like myself and for you. Look, I didn't grow up wanting to be a water expert. I want to turn on my faucet and the water comes out. Here's
Sure.
the bottom line: there was a big posterior reservoir in the Los Angeles area that
Sure.
was left empty for a year and a half. Do you know why it was left empty?
Because
Because
it
they
had to tear. It had to tear in the
oh,
cover because
right.
they turned it from a wildfire source of water to a drinking water source
They
of water.
turned it to no source of water. They left it empty after the fire.
So
They
true.
needed to do a bid. Are you ready for this? For $148,000, which is nothing. LA City's a billion in debt. pool cover. You can call it whatever you want. It's a really big pool cover. And because the government in California couldn't get around to replacing a pool cover, and I know I'm not the brightest brick on the pile, but I believe you need water to fight fire. Now let's talk about once they burn down, okay? And Karen Bass, and by the way, I apologize if any children are watching the show for using Bass's name, but I went ahead and said it. Brad, we built one house. No, you haven't. The house that was built in the Palisades was already permitted ahead before the fires, so the rebuilding isn't going at all. And you ready for more? You ready for
Yes.
more? Are you
Yes.
sitting down? After
I am.
burning down all these homes, the Los Angeles City Council, and it's really hard to call them that with a straight face, it's 14 communists and a Democrat who isn't so communist, but let's leave it at that, voted the other day to say, we're not sure if we can waive the permitting fees. You heard about this, right?
No, I didn't
We
hear
can't
about that
sure that we can waive
decision.
the permitting fees on these people building their homes because we're not sure that we can afford it. So hold on. What you did is let their houses burn, maybe cause their houses to burn, and now say we can't waive the permitting fees for burning down your hostages. That's like taking me hostage in a van and then calling me up from the kidnappers beside me and saying, would you mind paying your own ransom?
How do you deal with that in California? I have family there. I've lived there for multiple decades. I have lived in all 3 states on the West Coast, West Coast. And the most dysfunctional one, and from whom they take all of the other states take their cues, is California.
A
What
lot
the
of
hell?
times they take their cues from California because they're interlinked.
Oh,
When you
yes.
talk about oil, the Western States Petroleum Association,
It's a
okay,
cartel. Mhm.
is the Western States Petroleum Association. Here's a trivia question for you. Do you know about the oil pipeline coming from Texas to California?
No, not off the top of my head. Please tell me
No, you
about
don't,
this.
because there isn't one. They're working on building one. There has never been an
I
oil
was drinking
pipeline.
something.
I knew that. That's why I waited till you did that. I got timing. Okay. So the reality is when Gavin Newsom forbids drilling in California in favor of the environment, okay, he is screwing. In fact, by the way, the governor of Nevada and even Oregon wrote him a letter and said, don't do that, along with the Democratic governor of Arizona, because it ups the prices for everybody. So what Gavin Newsom does is the oil now comes in from places like Venezuela, Ecuador, fine upstanding countries, on big belching ships. So it can cost us more and screws Western states as a whole. We may finally get a pipeline. That's why gasoline, they sent you that thing this morning. And by the way, if you ever want to get looks on X, or views as we call them, just put up a picture of California gas. People go, you're making it up, you're lying, it's photoshopped. No, I went down to the local ARCO station and took a picture. I don't need to Photoshop. Yes, indeed, our gas is over $2 a gallon higher. For those of you out there who
That's true.
broke away from hugging your tree to listen to this show, you're not helping the environment. You're making it worse because, again, it's brought in by big belching ships, which come across the ocean a very long way from countries who consider slave labor minimum wage.
Wow.
So how do we deal with it? Oh, you had a question there. Sorry. How do we deal
No.
with it is this. We go about our lives in groups like this fight. Rebuild California. I realize I'm running out of time. I'm on till about 2 here. So let me sum this up. We do this by saying the major thing we're fighting is the party of apathy. RebuildCalifornia.com. We are a group of people who started the recall of Gavin Newsom. We're gathering the state. Go to my X feed at Netter Mike, where every day, probably literally 60, 70 times a day, we put out materials just to tick you off. We do a show live just like yours, California Free Radio. that's on blasting on our Facebook channels. Get active, do something. LinkedIn, follow me, go to our YouTube channel, Outrage. But here's the thing, hold on. Before you cut me off, let me make this perfectly clear. Everybody out there, when you're watching your television, most of you right now, if you have children, adult or small, you don't know where they are, but you know where your cell phone is at all times. Don't lie to me,
Mhm.
you do. And digital, the people that you can take and email out up to 200 emails a day at no cover charge information to the people that don't give a damn, which I call the party of apathy. We do have the ability to do things, but don't pay attention to the mainstream media who's dropping like a rock and beans. Pay attention to what we're doing here, because here's the reality. It's up to you as an individual. Don't rely on somebody. No one's coming to save you. It's up to you to
Yep.
take that little action to poke that neighbor around the corner and just let them know what's going on. Thank you for having me on today. I know I probably belong in a home, and I apologize it didn't take
Do not.
my mental medication before starting, but I'm out. Who can afford it on Obamacare?
Oh, man. That's another thing. Illegal aliens overwhelming Obamacare. Oh, well, thanks, Mike Netter. I appreciate it.